All right, the title of this piece is School Choice in Vermont, a 150-year-old system that leads to a brighter future. And John touched on a lot of the financing problems, and he started to touch on some of the solutions. We're going to focus mostly on the solutions in this last piece. Oops. But before I get into tuitioning in Vermont, I want to talk a little bit about some of the problems that we're facing. So when you're out on the campaign trail or talking to your friends and neighbors at the summer barbecue, things that you're going to hear from people are we have rising costs, which is very much true, as reflected in the property taxes. Rising need and cost for special education. There are more kids who need special education, and the cost of special education is rising extremely quickly. We have declining student numbers, which John talked about a little bit. I mean, we have all these public schools. We used to have 106,000 kids in the K-12 system back in 1997 before Act 60. Since Act 60, that number has dropped down to just below 90,000 and is projected to go down to as low as, I think, 82 or 80,000. And lastly, a big problem that we have is a failure to bridge the gap between rich and poor as far as academic achievement goes. Those are the things that you're going to hear people discussing in the State House about how do we solve this problem, how do we solve that problem, and it's certainly what you're going to hear on the campaign trail. A little bit of background about what the legislature has been doing. So if anybody asks you, what's been happening in the State House, what are some of the bills that have been passed, what are some of the things that they've been kicking around in committees? School district consolidation. That's being hailed as the big fix for what ails our education system, getting those efficiency. John talked about it a little bit. But the big problem that I think people back at the local level are going to see with school district consolidation is the loss of local control. As John said, local control is a very big, important thing in a lot of communities, and a lot of communities are not going to give it up. I'll just give an example of my own school district. In Stowe, we were looking at the Lamoille Supervisory Union consolidation. It would be Stowe, Morrisville, and Elmore. Well, Stowe did not want to consolidate because we have the #1 high school in the state. And the consolidation would mean shutting it down and sending our kids to Morrisville. They would shut down their middle school and send their middle school kids to Stowe, and Stowe didn't want any part of that. Morrisville didn't want any part of it because the consolidation would have meant they would have had to pick up some of Stowe's considerable property tax burden. They would get shifted back over them. They didn't want to pay any more money. And Elmore didn't want any part of it because they have school choice. And if they're consolidated into a district that has a public school system, a public school in it, they would lose school choice. And nobody wanted the consolidation. So there's lots of people that can be talked to about this. Everybody has a stake in the game from one perspective or another. Another very dangerous piece of legislation that has been kicking around the past biennium, they tried it in 2013, they tried it in 2014. Both times it failed. It failed by the skin of its teeth, not because the legislation actually won over the hearts and minds of the legislature and they saw that it was wrong. We had a couple of people in the House, particularly Brian Campion from Bennington, where North Bennington the school went independent, and in the Senate, Senator Dick Sears. They had enough juice to play enough parliamentary rules to run out the clock. If the legislative session had gone on one more day this year, that bill would have passed and there would have been a 2-year moratorium on schools going independent. Making independent schools conform to public school regulations. This is very dangerous. There are a lot of independent schools out there, and what the educrats say, the blob, as John likes to call them, say, is it's not fair that these independent schools don't have to hire licensed teachers, they don't have to take some of the standardized testing. It's ironic, they say that No Child Left Behind and all the standardized testing that goes along with it is a horrible thing, but then you've got a system that doesn't have to actually do it and they want to force them to do it. And they may have a case that, some of these things it's easier for an independent school to deal. They don't have to hire a licensed teacher, for example. They don't have to be certified in all areas of special education. However, there are a lot of advantages to being a public school, but they are not talking about conferring then on the independent schools. For example, if you are a public school and you lose 10 students over the course of the year, there's a financial formula that they work through so you don't actually lose the money for those 10 students. Whereas if you're an independent school, if you lose 10 students, you lose all the money that follows those 10 students. They're not talking about saying, okay, we'll have that slope put in for the independent schools. Things like that. I mean, of course, and if you're a public school, your student body is guaranteed for you. You don't have to market for it. It just exists, and the government will force people into the school. So you have to worry about your funding. You don't have to worry about marketing. Those are things that independent schools have to do, and none of the legislation equalizing the playing field is talking about equalizing the playing field as far as independent schools go on that scope. So a little bit of background about Vermont's tuitioning system. It's very unique. It exists a little bit in Maine, it exists a little bit in New Hampshire, but really the only place that has the kind of concentration of town tuition is Vermont. And it's been here since 1869. We've maintained a publicly funded school choice system in which families living in mostly rural school districts that do not contain a public school can send their children to any public or approved non-religious independent school inside or outside the state. And what is really unique about Vermont, only, as I said, only about 6% of the total population has access to school choice in Vermont, and 4% send their kids to independent schools. But if you look at all the school choice programs that are really gaining momentum throughout the country, they're very limited in the number of people who can participate, who qualify. In Vermont, which means that you may have 60,000 people in Pennsylvania who qualify to take part in their voucher program, but only a very small percentage of the people who qualify will actually lottery in and be able to get the voucher. Vermont, they complain, it's a very small percentage of the population is eligible, but what's unique about Vermont is every kid who's eligible participates. The other thing that's very unique about Vermont is a lot of the other voucher programs throughout the country only give a small percentage of the money following the child as compared to what the public school would get, $2,000, maybe $4,000 or $5,000. Vermont sends pretty much the full freight. If you choose another public school, they will pay whatever that public school charges. If you choose an independent school, they will pay generally up to the average student expenditure, which is about $13,130 something, which is significant. You can pay the full boat to go there. And what most independent schools, particularly the smaller, more entrepreneurial independent schools do, is they just charge that amount for their tuition. So there's no added expenditure for the parent if they want to send their child to that school. Not true in every case, but it's true in most cases.
Rob?
Yes?
Oh, for parents who homeschool, do they get that money, or is
No.
that money?
They should, but they don't. So here is a map of the school choice towns in Vermont. Currently 93 towns have school choice to some degree. And you don't have to know what the colors on the map are, but each town, they correspond to whether the town has school choice for elementary school, middle school, or high school, or a combination of the three. You know, as I said, if the district does not have a public school, doesn't have an elementary school, you have elementary school choice. If it doesn't have a middle school, you have middle school choice. If it doesn't have a high school, you have high school choice. And if you don't have any of them, you have choice from K through 12. So there are 93 towns, and these are the towns that have school choice to one degree or another. And as I said, it's about 6% of the population. What does choice mean to families? Again, we want to emphasize the fact that we're giving you some statistics here, we're giving you a lot of numbers, but these numbers back up stories. And the stories are the things that are going to really move people's hearts and minds. It was funny, we did a series of debates with the Public Assets Institute last winter, and one of the people at the Manchester debate held up their hand and said, why is it that the parents who have school choice in this town are willing to die before they'll give it up? And everybody kind of chuckled in the room because nobody's actually died defending school choice, but there is some truth behind the sentiment. People will come out to fight to keep the school choice that they have. If you listen to parents, they had here in Rutland, back towards the end of the session, it was probably April, they did a public hearing on education, and you had school choice parents from all over the region come to this area and tell their stories. We have that up online, and if you want to talk about this issue, I suggest you take, it's like 25 minutes of video, watch that because you'll hear the parents in their own words tell the stories about what school choice means to them. But just to put it in perspective, zero in on the Northeast Kingdom. Northeast Kingdom, all of these towns are school choice. These ones that are in blue actually have school choice from K through 12. Every kid from birth to when they graduate high school has school choice. So there are quite a number of opportunities. If you're a parent of a high school student in this area of the Northeast Kingdom, and you live in a tuitioning town, you can choose to send your child to the St. Johnsbury Academy or the Linden Institute, 2 Academy independent schools, excellent schools. You can send them to the East Burke School, which is a smaller independent school. You can send them to Burke Mountain Academy, which is a ski academy. So if they're a top winter athlete and you want to focus on that, you send them there. Cornerstone School, focusing on children who have special needs, either behavioral or developmental problems. The Concord School is a public school. You can send them to the public school in Concord. You can send them to the public school in Littleton High School in New Hampshire. You can send them to a public school in White Mountain Regional School in New Hampshire. And John tells me that I probably left a few more off this list that you could send your kids to, all within reasonable driving distance. So think about that if you're a parent. If you've got a kid who, for example, really loves music, well, they've got a great music program at the Linden Institute that really fits in with what they're doing. So you send one kid there. Another kid is interested in nursing or an international program. So you send that child to the St. Johnsbury Academy. You have another child that maybe has a little bit of a learning disability. So you send them to the Cornerstone School. And it's the ability to find that fit that is so important. And it may not even be something as on the academic level. It could be that I work in New Hampshire across the border, and I want my kid to be in the school in New Hampshire so I can drive them to school every day and have lunch with them on, or pick them up or attend their after-school sporting events. It fits into the lifestyle of the family. It fits into the academics of the kid. John?
Let me just add one thing. In the choice towns, you can put your kid into an exchange program. My daughter spent her 3rd year in Romanville, France high school, at town expense, airfare, tuition, room and board, and they saved $1,000 over the academy tuition.
So, yeah, those are the kinds of opportunities that are there. It's not just within driving distance. You can send your child to any school. Rob? Yeah. Yes. Ron.
The St. Johnsbury and East Burke and Burke Mountain and so forth, do they have entrance exams of some sort, as much as they've kind of opened themselves to public acceptance? What do they do with the general public? Do they make them take exams? How do the kids
John
get
might be able to answer that.
Yeah, the academy requires 5th grade reading skills. That's all.
Okay, so that's what the independent system looks like and what is important to Vermont. Here's the next phenomenon that's happening, and John touched on it a little bit, going independent. So this is another facet of the tuitioning landscape that you're going to need to understand because it's very controversial at this point in the legislature. And that is 15 years ago, it's happened twice. 15 years ago, the Mountain School at Wynn Hall, pictured there, closed their public school, which the district no longer had a public school anymore, so they became a tuitioning town. And they reopened an independent school in place there. So now the Mountain School at Wynn Hall is an independent school, and everybody in the town tuitions their kids to wherever they want to go. With tremendous results, which I'll talk about in a second. Not this past year, I guess it was 2013. Yeah, 2013. The village school of North Bennington did exactly the same thing. They elected, as a community, they all voted to close their public school. The district no longer has an elementary school, so they became a choice town. They reopened the school. Same teachers. The former principal is now the headmaster. And they're an independent school, and they have tuition. So the children do not have to go to the village school of North Bennington anymore. They can go wherever their money takes them. This has, of course, the education establishment up in arms because they've always been very suspicious of the town academies, but they'll put up with the town academies because the town academies are sort of de facto public schools for the region. And they've been there for a long, long time. They have a great history. They have a great following. But if all of a sudden public schools are going to be leaving the system to join the tuitioning system, that's a trend that they really want to stop, even if it's better for the kids, better for the parents, better for the taxpayers.
Particularly the unions.
Particularly the unions, because this village school is no longer a union school.
So what kind of time frame is involved in closing and reopening?
I think it took them about 1.5 years
Okay.
to do it. They think that they could be actually done quicker if you learn from them, some of the mistakes that they made. All right, now some of the issues that we're facing, I talked about the problems in the beginning. We have declining enrollment. As I said, we've gone from about 106,000 students at its peak right before Act 60 in 1997. We're down here below 90,000 today, and that number keeps dropping off.
That's every student in the state?
That's every K-12 student in the state. So what you'll hear people say who are in favor of consolidation is that you got all these big schools and you have fewer and fewer students, consolidation is inevitable. And there's some truth to that, because you can't have these big schools with fewer and fewer student bodies. It doesn't make any sense. But here is why school choice actually makes a whole lot more sense as a solution to our problem of declining enrollment. And that's because smaller schools can be a lot more entrepreneurial in how they reach out to students. When consolidation occurs, if it's done with parental choice, you will have people a whole lot more satisfied than if the state comes in and just says, we're going to stop your school and send you away. In fact, I learned last night when we gave this presentation up at the Northeast Kingdom, what the Concord School, one of the ones I mentioned, it's a very small school. It has about 80 students. It doesn't have any AP programs. It's kind of from what people tell me. They didn't decide to actually give out school choice or close the school and become a choice town. What they decided to do is essentially grant everybody who asks to go to someplace else the ability to do so. So when you have the sophomores, the juniors, and the seniors in the school don't have to get thrown out for their last couple of years, a year or 2 or 3 of school. But the new freshmen that are coming in, they come in, they see they have the whole gamut of choices to choose from. They get to, that's what they're doing. They're choosing the academy, they're choosing an institute, something like that.
So Concord is transitioning to a school choice model?
They're transitioning, from my understanding of what I was told last night, yes, that's what they're moving towards. So there will be some contraction that's going to occur, but it's going to be popular with people. And when you have a number of small schools are shown to actually do a better job of educating the children. So it works better for the kids. But if one of them closes, it's not as dramatic as if a large centralized school closes itself. Rising costs, another problem that we are dealing with today. Since Act 60, we were down here, Act 60, total cost of education has skyrocketed from roughly about $780 million a year to over $1.5 billion since Act 60. The system has just allowed for the explosion of cost in education. Well, again, school choice is a solution to rising costs. At least it can be. There's certainly the potential there for savings. And here's what you look at. In Vermont, tuition-based schools charge on average 15 to 30% less per pupil than the other schools. This is the tuition at St. Johnsbury Academy, just under $16,000 for Burton Academy, under $16,000. Linden Institute, just about at $16,000. The public school is somewhere between $17,500 and $18,500, depending upon the numbers that you hear. And tuitioning, as I said, the average tuition is what you send out on a tuitioning thing is $13,138. So a Sharon Academy, a Compass School, a mountain school at Wynn Hall, this is the amount that they charge. It's a lot less.
Is that a state average?
Yes. That's the state. The PICUS number has it at about 7,500. The NEA number is about 18,500. So you can take whichever one you think is more accurate. But either number is significantly higher than what the academies charge or what the tuition rate is. So the potential for real savings exists in a school choice model. Stagnant scores. this is a big problem. Our kids need to compete in a more competitive global environment. Their scores need to change. The Cato Institute put together this chart. Here's that same spending model. There's Act 60 right in there. Shooting up to here, this goes back to 1972. That's how much we spend on public education in Vermont on an annual basis. These are our SAT scores. That flat line right there. They are actually slightly below what they were in 1972, despite that huge increase in spending. Some kids don't take SAT scores well. They don't like filling in the dots. Let's look at another measure of stagnant scores. This is the NAEP Efficiency for 2013. 48% of our fourth grade kids are not proficient in math. 58% of our fourth grade kids are not proficient in reading. 53% of our kids are not proficient, eighth grade kids are not proficient in math. And 55% of our eighth grade kids are not proficient in reading. So a majority of these students are not learning enough to be proficient in the subjects that we're teaching. Look at it another way. All these red numbers are kids who are falling through the cracks of the current system. And some people on our side don't like to hear the word fair, but this is not fair. This is not a system that's being fair to these kids. I want to read this to you. This is what Armando Villaseca said. He was the former Secretary of Education. He was Secretary, from a November 26, 2013 official memo from the Department of Education. He said, I'm particularly concerned that we still have not made major progress in closing the achievement gap for students living in poverty. This is another thing. The public school system has to be fair because that's what helps kids in poverty. Vermont students demonstrated significant achievement gaps based on family income. The smallest gap was 14 percentage points in fourth grade mathematics, and the largest was 23 percentage points in fourth grade reading. The current system, the one that they're defending, does not work for helping kids in poverty. They still have not made major progress in closing the gap. That's major progress over decades.
How much is it?
It's over decades. So how many more decades of failing those children and NAEP scores do we want to let continue before we decide that it's a bad business model that's responsible for those scores and not money? So let's look at what transitioning to a tuitioning school model can accomplish. The Mountain School at Winhall. I love this because they went independent just about the same time that Act 60 came into being, so it's almost a parallel. And you've seen the explosion in cost and the flat score in the traditional public school model. But at the Mountain School at Winhall, in 1997, the public school that served Winhall had the highest per pupil spending of any elementary school in the state at $12,600 per student. The state average at the time was just under $7,000 per student. 15 years later, tuition at the now independent Mountain School at Winhall for 2012-2013 was $13,160. Significantly less than the Vermont statewide per pupil average, which I pointed out was over $17,000 per student. Since Act 60, independent Mountain School at Winhall have increased by a total of 4.4%. A total. Most school budgets go up 4.4% a year. Their budget has gone up 4.4% in a decade and a half. That's pretty remarkable. Now, scores, because it's not all about money. Money's certainly important, but the real goal at the end of the day is to turn out well-educated kids. Before the Mountain School at Winhall was created in 1998, the public school it replaced had test scores that were among the lowest in the state. For FY13, though, the Mountain School at Winhall's 8th graders scored, this is 15 years later, 13 points above the state average in reading, 16 points above the state average in math, 19 points above the state average in writing. So by transitioning to a tuitioning-based model, this Mountain School at Winhall has shown us that you can have better education outcomes for less money. And as for declining student numbers and consolidation, when they went independent, they had about 35 kids in the school. Today they have about between 75 and 80 kids in the school because they're putting out a good product, they're bringing in kids from other neighborhoods. They're also losing about 60% of the kids from their neighborhoods to other outlying schools because they're saying, okay, I can get a better fit here, or I can get a better fit there. It's not about keeping everybody you got and bringing them in. It's a lot about letting the kids get, finding the fit that they need. Oh, and I'm running a little bit late, so I'm going to try and wrap this up quickly. I just do want to talk about special education, because the attacks that you're going to see on this program, the tuitioning program, is that these independent schools, they are not fair to the kids who have special needs. This is not true. First of all, it's a myth that the independent schools don't take kids with special needs. In fact, there are over 120 independent schools in Vermont. About 20 or so are general, they accept the general school population. There are about 25 or 30 that are Catholic, so they don't take tuition, they don't participate in tuitioning. The rest are dealing with kids with special needs. They're all specifically for kids with special needs. But we're currently spending like $305 million a year on special needs, and it's a number that's growing. So it is a very serious problem in terms of spending. But I want to talk a little bit about a study, a statistic that was done of the Green and Foster study of the McKay Scholarship Program, which took place down in Florida. The McKay Scholarships are down in Florida, and essentially gives vouchers to kids who have special needs. Any kid that has a special need is able to go wherever it is they want. They think that they're going to get the best service. And what they discovered was that in public schools, if you force the kid to go to the public school, based on their geography, 46.8 were bothered often and 24.7 were physically assaulted due to their disabilities in the public school environment. But you give the kid a voucher. You give the kid the opportunity to find a peer group that works for them, an environment, an overall educational environment that works for them, and 5.3 were bothered often and 6% were assaulted. That's a huge difference in kids getting the kind of, and getting the right environment means everything. There's some great stories in there about parents, mostly the parents who came out to the Rutland forum, talked about their special needs kids finding a place that worked for them. And the last point that I think is really important, particularly if you're talking to people of all political stripes, is tuitioning is a nonpartisan issue every place except under the Golden Dome in Montpelier. The Friedman Foundation did a poll in 2009 and found that those who are familiar with Vermont's tuitioning system, Republicans, 64% of the people favored it. Amongst independents, 62% of the people favor town tuitioning. And Democrats lead the pack, 65% favor town tuitioning. So these are landslide numbers. The only reason that it's partisan under the Golden Dome is because you have the teachers' union, which is extremely politically powerful, and they don't want anything to do with it. But the parents, they're the ones who...
They're the largest lobbying group in the state, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So, but it's the people who vote, even in Vermont. I mean, I understand big elections require a lot of money, so they need money from people like, groups like NEA.